Michigan snow forecast gold standard. This is a look at the sea surface temperatures as we get ready to release to you our November forecast and kind of some of the things that go into how we forecast mid and long range forecasting. And this is a look at the sea surface temperatures, and right away what we look at to try to diagnose and figure out what's going to go happen with the overall atmospheric setup that affects North America and specifically the Great Lakes metropolitan area where I reside, right? You look out here to the Pacific Ocean and the sea surface temperature anomalies, and you can see this is the 19th of October, 2021, October, right? As today is the 20th of October, a perfect time, 2/3 of the way through October and almost 2/3 of the way through the autumn time to put out our November forecast. You can see at 180 and 30 north to 150 west, we got a big area that's a positive sea surface temperature anomaly, right? That's a very critical setup. And then as we look in to the coast of Alaska, you see a big cool anomaly, a big cool pool that's in the exact spot that in 2013, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, and to some extent 16, 17, but really 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, there was a big positive anomaly there. You guys remember that? It was a big paint bomb. It looked like this, but it was right there, right? And the mainstream media and the political propagandist machines used it as a way to promote global warming because it was very warm in Alaska and northwest Canada. And what happens when you get a big warm pool here instead of a cold pool, you get a high pressure. And what does high pressure do? It makes it dry, sunny, the air sinks. When the air sinks, the air condenses. When the air condenses, it warms, right? And that's what happens when you get a big warm pool there. And in contrast, and you had a big, and with that signature, you had a warm PDO look there, where you had a warm ring right here, centered with a big warm pool right here. Now you have the exact opposite because you're in a cold state of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, and now the cold signature look is there. You get the big cold ring from northwest Alaska, right here where this big cold pool is. And when this happens, as you're noticing now, and if you look back at the summer times at 13, 14, or 07, 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, you had a big cold pool here, and you had very cold summers and falls and early winters up in Alaska. This year, right now, you got a lot of cold air building over Alaska, the continent, and northwest Canada right now because you got this big cold pool here. And then you notice the ring goes down the west coast, down the southwest coast to Canada, Washington, Oregon, California, down to the U.S.-Mexico line, and then it tails off back to the southwest to Alaska or to Hawaii. You see that? You got that big hook, big cold ring there. The big warm pool here centered, which is critical. Then you got the double La Nina. As you had a La Nina last year, you got a second year La Nina this year, hence the word double La Nina, right? And it's going to be a moderate La Nina, peaking as it looks towards December and January, and then starting to back off later January, February, and March. As we work in the spring, it should start to moderate and go more towards neutral on into late spring or early summer is the way it looks now. Then if we look to the south at 150 west to 30 south, all the way back into 120 west, and then if you go the opposite way, all the way into the Indian Ocean in Australia, it's warm. That's all critical setup in the sea surface temperatures. Warm, cold PDO, double La Nina, and then warm down here because the MJO or the Maddie and Julian Oscillation, the sea surface temperatures out into here are critical as to where the development's going to fire up over the ocean, right? So that's what we take a look at. And this is different than last year and the year before and the year before where you had a warm PDO look, but it was backing off. Now this is completely flipped to a cold PDO, and then the warm water is in a classic spot. This is where you would expect it. If you look up a cold PDO, where you would expect a warm sea surface temperature anomalies out in the northern Pacific, right? It would be right here at 180 west, at 180, centered at 180, and then branching out to 150 west, and then branching over to 150 east, centered at 30 north. This is exactly the quadrant where you would expect it to be centered, and it is. And then if we look at, as we started honing in on the October temperatures, what we thought October would do, these were the first years we had 55, 74, 75, 2000, 01, 08, 10, right? And it had a cold Pacific Northwest, a warm upper Midwest, down the high plains and into Texas, and then cold air along the East Coast. Then as we honed in a little bit more, you can see that we added some years, took out some years, right? Added 2012 and 19. Still had that cold Pacific Northwest, a little bit warmer, but still warm here. Warmer in the Northeast and less cold than the last one had. Notice that it had a colder Northeast. It's cold. It's a warmer look overall. And then when we finally honed in on the October temperatures and the ones that are fitting beautifully, lining up for mid-late fall and on into a quick start, as you know, Vincenzo's Gold Crypto Investing, sponsoring Michigan Snow Forecast Gold Standard, it has a quick start to winter. As we work our way into mid-November, we expect a lot of cold air and storminess to get into much of the upper Midwest and Northeast as we approach the latter third of November. We expect it to be very cold and stormy in the Northeast, in the Great Lakes, right? So these are the years that we think are going to be dominant. Our analogs, 85, 89, 98, 99, 07, 08 are big hitters in the Great Lakes. 2010 is a big hitter. 11 is a horrible winter. Is one of the warmer, least snowiest winters on record in the Midwest and Great Lakes and Northeast. And then 2017 was a quick starter and then a benign winter to finish, right? No, 17 was a good winter. I was out of town for that winter. 17 was above normal. I think we had 68 inches at Metro that year, right? So this is what it said October should look like. Cold Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, and California, right? Here's October to date. Washington, Oregon, California. Very cold. And that's what's happened. Then as we progress east and we get into Nevada, Idaho, and New Mexico, it should start warming up. Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, it's been cold, but starting to get warmer as you go in. It's hit that good. Then as we get into the west of the Intermountain West Divide, west or east of the divide, it gets very warm, right? Once you get into the high plains and out into the Midwest, North Dakota, or Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, very warm out into Michigan and the Northeast, down the plains and out into northern Texas should be very warm. What do we got? Very warm in Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and down into Texas, very warm. It says it should be very warm and only a touch of coolness along the immediate coast. And it's a touch cooler, but it's hit it pretty good on. You see that? And that's what we think we got going on with our analogs, the years that I've looked at, basing it off the sea surface temperatures, right? It's doing a very good job for October as we were forecasting. And then as we look into November, it's got this for November. And what I think is going to go on in November is you're going to have a lot of cold air building in Canada, and it's going to start coming down in. It could be a warm start in the Northeast and Midwest the first 10 days of November. And then once you work your way on into November 10th to 15th, I believe a lot of cold air that's building up here is going to be pushing southeast on into the Great Lakes and Northeast. And I think from November 15th on, it's going to be a very stormy, cold Great Lakes and Northeast, right? And that's how we come up with this for our November forecast. We think Arctic air is going to be building in Canada or in Alaska, over the continent, in Northwest Canada. It is building there now. It's very cold up there now. And as November starts, the cold air is going to be pushing southeast. And I think as you wrap up from November 1st to November 30th, you're going to be below normal by 3 to 5 degrees up here, right? And then if you work your way into the upper Midwest, you're going to be 1 to 3 degrees below normal here. As I think we're maybe mild to start, but then the cold air is going to be pushing as the month progresses. And I think it's going to knock these temperatures down, right? So it might be a warm to start the first 7 days in the Northeast, but that cold is going to be pushing as the month progresses. And then you're going to start getting an active storm track as storms come out over top in the Washington and Oregon. That's why I think it's going to be chilly. They come out over the top and then down the Rockies, right? And out into the high plains, tap into some Gulf of Mexico moisture, and I think you're going to have an early season and a very cold start, right? Warm start possible, cold air mid-late November. And these blue areas, and especially in the Northeast, I think this is how it's going to, overall, it's going to be below normal for November. Temperatures 1 to 3 degrees in Oregon, Washington, northern Wyoming, North and South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And in Iowa, I think it's going to be slightly below normal for November after a mild start, right? But the cold air is going to push and overtake for most of the month. The same thing with the Great Lakes and Northeast. You might start out mild the first few days. That could skew it a little bit. And then if it takes till the 13th, 14th, 15th, or 16th for the cold air to settle in the Great Lakes and Northeast, it might take from above normal the first half of the month, and you might be so much below normal the second half of the month, it might still push you slightly below normal for the month. But I got you as neutral because I feel the fight from the warm start the possible warm start to the cold air that pushes as you get into mid and late November will balance it out to near normal temperatures. But it could be a mild start and a very cold finish that balances it out when you average it all out to an average month, and then slightly above normal for the East Coast, just because you could have a mild start, right? And that would make you slightly above normal after you balance out the warm start and the cold finish. It might take a few more days longer. So after you balance it out, the last 10 days might be very cold, but the front 16 days were very warm, or 17 days, and it doesn't have enough time to balance it out, and it makes it slightly above normal temperatures there, right? But I think it's going to be very stormy in the Great Lakes Northeast from November 15th on, and then it's on into December. I think it's going to be a very cold month for much of the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast, and a very stormy December. I think it sets up for a very cold and stormy mid and late November on through the month of December on into the first of the year, right? I think it's a quick start to winter this year. There's been no hiding that. And then I think the warm air builds in southern California and the desert Southwest and spreads its way out into Texas and the Gulf Coast states, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Florida, right? That's where it's going to be warm this year. And I think it starts establishing itself mid and late November. It starts to get warm there, right? And then if we look into November, a quick sneak peek at December, I think December is going to be cold in the upper Midwest, centered in the Great Lakes, right? Eastern, upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. In Pennsylvania, it's the Great Lakes metropolitan region, I think, is setting up for a fast start to winter and is going to have a very cold December. After a mild start maybe to November, we have a cold mid and late November setting up, very stormy around Thanksgiving for the Great Lakes metropolitan area. And I think these areas, Michigan, Detroit, Chicago, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, St. Paul, I think you're going to have above normal snowfall in November and December. I think it's a very fast start to wintertime this year, contrary to last year and the year before, where Novembers and Decembers were very mild with not a lot of snow, even though last year in Detroit you had your first plowable snowstorm right around just before the Thanksgiving, but it all melted because it was 50 on Thanksgiving, right? That's what I think is going on. Like, subscribe, and share to Michigan Snow Forecast Gold Standard. Like I always say, peace and love, peace and love.